Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. First up, fire danger growing in interior Alaska and warm temperatures to ease over south central Alaska. Looks kind of showery and breezy for the southeast coast and chilly, kind of foggy at times, really same old thing up there on the Arctic coast. And moving on to, let's pass that, that's not current for today, but yesterday had a lot of clouds, moisture down here over the southeast coast, low pressure just off the coast, southeast flow sending several surges of moisture northwestward, just getting into the southeast interior and the Wrangell Mountains in the afternoon. Otherwise, lots of sunshine, clear skies here over the interior, right out to along and off the coast, Bristol Bay, Norton Sound, few low clouds around St. Lawrence Island, and then some cloudiness up there to the northeast. Otherwise, look like mostly sunny all the way out to the Arctic coast. Out over the Bering Sea, not a whole lot going on over the central areas. Some clouds meandering westward there around the Pribilofs. Storm system pushing eastward with a front, rain and wind from Shimia pushing on into the central Aleutians. And for today, we've got kind of a band right through here. That system continues to track eastward, and the back edge at 2 o'clock this afternoon right there near AKwx. So rain ending there, probably becoming more showery. Looks like some clearing just to the west, areas of on back out towards Shimia, and then the main bulk of the moisture now shifting in toward the eastern Aleutians. But again, a lot of nice conditions, sunshine, Alaska Peninsula, and high clouds moving in over on Alaska. Cloudy for the Pribilofs, and mostly sunny skies. Bristol Bay, the Alaska Aleutian Range areas northward. Even off the coast there again, partly sunny St. Lawrence Island. Lots of sunshine here across the Seward Peninsula in toward Kotzebue Sound, Noatak Valley, fair across the north slope and areas of the Arctic coast. And then some afternoon clouds developing or lingering right through there, Central Brooks Range off to the northeast, maybe a few light showers to go along with that. And a little bit more extensive area cloudiness and showers pulling northwestward here in across the southeast interior areas, and scattered showers down along, mostly off the coast, Prince William Sound and those areas. Really weak band of moisture there breaking up this afternoon, and just some clouds southern Cook Inlet, maybe a scattered shower for Kodiak Island, and then more clouds and showers, more continuous showers over the southeast coast. But some of the clearing down here around Dixon Entrance and the Queen Charlotte's moving into the southern areas, Heidelberg over toward Annette, Metlakatla, those areas, maybe seem a little clearing at this time. This moisture pushing eastward, and on the chart today, of course, rain to go along with that, mostly in advance of the front. Gusty south to southeast winds, maybe up to small craft advisories here, also in advance of the front, on the increase over toward Nikolsky. Otherwise, fair conditions, some sunshine, as I mentioned, the Alaska Peninsula, light breezes there, really light wind conditions across much of the Bering Sea. On up to the Bering Strait areas, and then a few isolated showers through here. Just some patchy areas of low clouds, fog, maybe a few flurries on the Arctic coast, nothing significant at all. High pressure. Look for more low clouds out there, mostly along and west of St. Lawrence Island, extending southwestward under that ridge axis out to another high there, 1,013 millibars, out toward the Komondorskis. And then here along the southeast coast, lots of showers, lots of clouds. Could be isolated thunderstorm. Didn't really see much there. Also over here, the southeast interior, could see some isolated thunderstorm activity picking up there. And then just some scattered showers over the mountainous terrain here, Chugach Mountains, Talkeetnas, and along the Gulf Coast. And of course, the Kenai Peninsula, Western Alaska Range, isolated showers. and a risk of there for Kodiak Island, and then breaks across the Gulf of Alaska and the North Gulf Coast. Sunshine, Tanana Valley areas north of the Alaska Range, as I mentioned, back to the northwest. And then for tonight, it looks like low pressure, another front will develop here and spread late tonight. More rain, steady rain back in over the southern southeast coast, Queen Charlotte's to Dixon Entrance, sliding up to the north. So after midnight and toward morning, get back into the rain for the southern areas. Variably cloudy, scattered or isolated showers onto the north. And still kind of showery and cloudy here for the North Gulf Coast. Hit and miss for places like Yakutat, Cordova, Valdez. And risk of a thunderstorm over the mountainous terrain here. Again, Chugats possible, Talkeetnas maybe, Kenai Peninsula, there's a chance. And off to the northeast there to the eastern Alaska Range, same pattern. Scattered, more isolated, weaker showers probably will fall silently to the night tonight here for the western Alaska Range. And west of there, mostly clear skies, thermal low there right over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And variably cloudy here, probably won't be stark clear as I got in this area, but patchy low clouds, maybe some fog. Generally dry, definitely dry. Shouldn't be too much change from what you saw today all along the southwest coast. Northward again, central, northern interior looking really good. High pressure up there over the Arctic. Easterly flow continues, but nothing very strong along the Arctic coast. And kind of that easterly flow all the way down to the Brooks Range, a little bit to the south. Light variable winds elsewhere. And out to the west, that front brings probably small craft advisories here eastward into the Fox Islands tonight, trying to push in toward the Alaska Peninsula. Lighter winds, more showery conditions. Then those northerlies picking up on the back side of that system. So AKwx, look for those north winds to increase late tonight. And conditions stay wet, but drying out. High pressure ridge way out there to the west here makes for good conditions for shimmying at too. Otherwise, fair skies tonight, as I mentioned, all the way up to the Arctic coast and those areas. For tomorrow, first day of the weekend, front now pushes to the Alaska Peninsula, so rain, gusty southeast winds. Possibly see some gusts there as high as 35 miles an hour coming across the Alaska Peninsula in the normally windier areas, Cold Bay, and more easterly and lighter for the Pribilofs. Back around to the northwest here, 25 knots, say maybe 30 in gusts for the central Aleutians. Now strongest over Atka tomorrow afternoon, beginning to let up over Adak, and you can see high pressure, light winds, and dry conditions. Western Aleutians, northeastward in the Russian Far East, and then eastward across all of the northern interior. Mostly sunny skies, partly to mostly even along the Arctic coast, still holding on to that chilly easterly wind flow up there. And there could be some patchy fog to go along with that. Of course, that'll reduce the flying conditions. Otherwise, looks like afternoon showers developing. And mostly cloudy skies now, south of the Alaska Range and east of the mountains. And especially across the Copper River Basin, there'll be more numerous showers, especially in the afternoon. Isolated thunderstorms to go along with that. Not possible anywhere over the mountainous terrain there, Kenai Peninsula and the areas I mentioned earlier, with more showery areas of light rain, North Gulf Coast, and then a trough keeping the showers going. Again, heaviest southern areas here, the Panhandle, but still looks pretty wet tomorrow. And yet another front developing and swinging northward. This is the original one, weakening as it swings north and then northwest. And then for Sunday, it looks like that first one pushes off into Canada and weakens. So rain changing to showers. Sunday looking mostly cloudy, scattered showers. Now the south coast here, southern areas, got pretty energetic trough swinging northeastward. So look for some 25 knot winds to develop along the south coast there from Dixon Entrance, probably 30 knots, 25 knots coming into Stevens Passage. And probably maybe a little bit more in the way of precipitation than what I've got drawn here, but definitely an increase in the shower conditions. Southern southeast coast becoming more scattered and isolated as you head north-northwest. And Yakutat could see some sunshine, high pressure. 1,012 millibars right along and off the North Gulf Coast, Gulf of Alaska. So light variable winds coming up for these marine areas for the weekend. And again, same pattern here over the southern interior with afternoon showers, any one of which could develop into a thunderstorm over mainly the mountainous terrain. And it looks like a little bit more of that might get up into the Tanana Valley now, to the White Mountains. North of there, though, are the Yukon Flats, Koyukuk Valley, up to the Brooks Range. Looks like some pretty good sunshine, and that'll extend southwestward here. Seward Peninsula again, Yukon Delta, and really just some clouds over the Kuskokwim Delta. Bristol Bay mostly sunny. Kodiak, maybe a little optimistic there with that easterly flow developing in the afternoon. Maybe a few more clouds pushing in the afternoon, but it'll be dry anyway. This front will still be too far south to bring any rain in until possibly Sunday night. And this trough will be all up in the southern interior areas. And the Arctic coast, easterlies 15 to 20 knots, lighter, becoming northeast, turning north, and even lighter than that, say 10 knots across the Chukchi Sea. Otherwise, light winds, nice conditions, dry, St. Lawrence Island, all the way down across the western Bering. This front here mostly sliding south of the Aleutians, or eastward to the south of the western Aleutians, but close enough to bring a chance of rain, and actually it looks like small craft advisories into the far western Aleutians during the afternoon on Sunday. Otherwise, looks like with this front here, we've got gale force winds coming into the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula in the forecast as a pretty tight gradient here along in advance of the front. Again, kicks those up to minimum gales 35 knots. And then that kind of wrapping back around, pretty breezy, but under gale force for the Fox Islands. Temperatures across the southeast coast for today, mostly in the 50s, lower to mid down south, mid to upper to lower 60s, 62 at Skagway, mid to upper 50s along the North Gulf Coast, 60 Anchorage, otherwise 50s the Kenai Peninsula, 53 Kodiak, 68 degrees in Talkeetna with Gulkana at 65, some 70s, Fairbanks on southwestward, McGrath 73, and Bethel up to 71 today with some pretty good sunshine. A little cooler up over the Yukon Flats, mid 60s, but still near 70, even back to the west here, Huslia and those areas with 60 along the Brooks Range. Arctic coast kind of chilly, right around the 30-degree mark most areas. Warmer inland, 51 there at Point Lay, and chilly up here over the northwest interior, upper 30s to as high as 49 at Buckland, 48 Nome. And 60s or near 60 inland areas of the southwest coast, chillier out toward the water, of course, and 40s lower for the Pribilofs, upper 40s for the Unalaska area, with 40s for the remainder of the Aleutians, much of the Alaska Peninsula, Sandpoint 55, as well as 65 at King Salmon. And for the lows tonight, 45 to 50 here over the west central interior areas, and 40s elsewhere, upper 20s Arctic coast north slope, 40s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow, looks like a more widespread area, 70s here, lower 70s Tanana Valley, the greater Fairbanks area, and maybe off to the east a little bit, but definitely back down mid 70s into the Kuskokwim Valley, lower 70s again across the deltas, 30s hopefully pushing above freezing there for the eastern Arctic coast, otherwise 40s for the Aleutians, 50s for the Panhandle. Flying weather, lingering IFR, Lincoln Glacier Bay, late tonight into tomorrow, otherwise breaking up. And then VFR southern interior, this stuff mostly along or off the coast here, and then that IFR area from the Brooks Range north side out to the Arctic coast. Lots of IFR, big chunk here for the central Aleutians, across the Pribilofs to the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. And for tomorrow afternoon, that breaks up a little bit here and moves up to close to the coastline, but Cape Newinham probably be the only one affected, and could see some IFR for the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, and then marginal VFR sliding northward into Prince William Sound, possible IFR, western Prince William Sound throughout the day tomorrow, otherwise better for the southeast coast. Anaktuvik and Adigan, both VFR, clouds, showers will be of the VFR variety for those passes. Same thing for Lake Clark, Merrill, and Rainy. Good VFR tomorrow, windy, Isabel, Mentasta, marginal VFR, more moisture over there, showers, possible thunderstorms. And for Tanita, VFR, Portage, marginal VFR, possible IFR in the eastern approach. Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, kind of a cold pocket here over the southeast coast, 4,000 feet. And really not much of a gradient here across the state, 4,000 to 6,000 feet to 2,000 feet in the Arctic coast and 2,000 feet out to the west. For icing, with that moisture sliding eastward, areas of here, Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, possibly up to the Pribilofs, above about 5,000. Scattered areas of over the southeast interior, as well as the southern southeast coast. And the upper level wind flow chart, the jet stream, 18,000 foot winds here. Upper level high, eastern interior, kind of a ridge. South flow along the coast, turns westerly for the Arctic coast, but not very strong. The main jet south of the entire state. And 9,000 feet with this low tracking eastward. Southeasterlies 25 to 35 knots there across the peninsula tomorrow. Northerlies at 30, following in behind. Light variable winds, Gulf of Alaska, southeast coast. Maybe some easterlies at 20 just south of the Brooks Range there, and up to 30 knots on the western Arctic coast. and pretty breezy. Again, 3,000 feet, not that bad though, 20 to 25 along the Arctic coast, much lighter through the interior, right down into the Gulf of Alaska. And could see some 35-knot winds sneaking into the southern panhandle tomorrow. Otherwise pretty breezy for the Alaska Peninsula and the central Aleutians. And for turbulence, some mechanical due to those southeast winds across the mountainous terrain there of the Alaska Peninsula. Areas of possible isolated moderate there, 4,000 feet. And then with that northerly wind flow coming in behind across the Adak-Atka area, improving the Adak in the afternoon. And for the southern southeast coast with increasing winds. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And once again, you brought some wonderful satellite pictures to show us and do a little show and tell about. It's just amazing. I can get lost in satellite pictures all day. What did you bring today?
Right. Well, weather satellites, what are they good for? Yeah. Of course, there's the pretty pictures that they bring us. You know, we've got a picture here from April of 2012. Okay. The Sumi NPP satellite, it's what they call a polar orbiter, which means it covers Alaska because we're near the pole. Beautiful image. You can see a storm off of southeast Alaska, the sea ice along the Bering Sea up into the Arctic. A really nice picture, and this is important because it allows a forecaster to see where the storms are, where the ice is, where the clear areas are. You need to know where the weather is now if you're going to forecast it into the future. Exactly. So satellites give us these good pictures. This is called surveillance of the weather. And you know, that same satellite also has another picture from a little more recently, August of 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle bearing down on the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaii doesn't get hit by a whole lot of tropical storms or hurricanes. Sometimes it does. And here's a picture from the same satellite, the Sumi NPP Polar Orbiter. It shows Tropical Storm Iselle approaching the Hawaiian Islands from the southeast. You can see the storm swirling away there, and then there's the Hawaiian Islands. This is a tropical storm, not quite as strong as a hurricane because we don't see the eye wall in there. This is still a serious weather system. And all of this information comes just from that satellite picture. It's so much information, and it's wonderful to look at. You see the beauty and the awe of nature right there depicted in that weather satellite. We call it a polar orbiter because the satellite flies high over the globe. Maybe we could look here at we happen to bring the planet Earth with us. This is our satellite. A polar orbit flies really close to the Earth, maybe 800 kilometers over the Earth, and goes up over the pole and then back down, and then the Earth spins under the satellite as it goes by. That's in contrast to the geostationary birds, which are much further out. And they don't view Alaska quite as well. So we love those polar orbiter satellites here in Alaska.
So when we're a lot closer, we get much better details and imagery and an idea of a better maybe position of what's going on when it's passing right over Alaska or right over Hawaii.
Yes, exactly right. The polar orbiter gives such a good view of places like Alaska. And because it's close to the planet, there's another aspect of satellites in the polar orbit that is helpful for weather forecasting. It's an aspect that's maybe not as immediately obvious as the pretty pictures that we see. And that is the capacity for the satellite to produce what's called a sounding. That is finding the vertical profile of temperature and moisture in the atmosphere. We've all heard of weather balloons. Weather balloons are launched here in Alaska twice a day at a number of airports, everywhere from Barrow to St. Paul Island to Kodiak, Anchorage and Fairbanks, Yakutat, a number of places. Launch these balloons, and we've got a picture of a balloon being launched at an airport, and the balloon goes up. It's pulling a little package, an instrument package with it that reports temperature, pressure, humidity data back, and we use that information to help feed what are called numerical weather prediction models.
The models.
The models, right. It's a mouthful, so we just call it the models. And these computer simulations, these models are computer programs that simulate the motion of the atmosphere. Well, how does a model know what the future will be like? You have to tell the model what things are like now. And you give it all kinds of information, including information from these satellite sounders. Very important. Just how important are they? We have a recent, comparatively recent study that really brings home, and this is Superstorm Sandy. We have a track image here of the track of Hurricane Sandy. Was down in the Caribbean around Cuba, and then it moved north over the ocean, offshore of the eastern seaboard, and then at the last minute, Sandy made what's called the left hook. It turned hard to the left and slammed into New Jersey. Was a major problem for the the mid-Atlantic states a calamity. It fused with another weather system and became known, this is not an official title, but Superstorm Sandy.
Right.
It was quite the weather event. Well, the modelers, after the event, there's a group of modelers in Europe. They have a very good model, a frustratingly good model if you're the Americans trying to pursue their excellence. They reran their model afterwards in what's called a data denial study, where they kept everything the same. So this is 6 months after Sandy, but they went back, they reran the same model, they fed the model the same initial conditions, that is telling the model, okay, here's where we think Sandy is, down near Cuba in the Caribbean. Everything was the same as it was in the real forecast, except they didn't let the model know.
No satellite data.
No satellite data. So we're going to put that over here, no satellite data for you. The resulting forecast 5 days out, back when the real Sandy was happening and the model had the satellite data, the forecast was pretty good. We've got a graphic here on the left side. We show the forecast of where Sandy would be, and that's the red bullseye on the left. It's just south of where it actually wound up hitting. Not a bad forecast from this computer simulation, 120 hours out. On the right, you see the same model, but it didn't have the satellite data to help it understand things. And the storm is way offshore. It misses. The forecast is more accurate when the model has the satellite data. So that's the idea today we want to convey, is weather satellites. They're important because they show us the pictures of where storms are. We see good examples of this. Yeah, the surveillance right now, it's great to look at those pictures. And in addition, behind the scenes, maybe not immediately obvious, but the models have to have that satellite data for them to be good forecasts. And then a meteorologist uses that information to help everyone with the forecast of where the storms will be in the future.
That is fascinating information that we can look at, see where things have been, because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. That's that old adage there. But seeing that satellites are actually helping us move forward in the weather information system is pretty amazing stuff.
You bet.
And if you want to check out Eric's satellite images that he's been talking about, whether that's something from today or last week or even much further back in Alaska history, you can easily do that yourself. Go to www.gina.alaska.edu and you can find those images there. Eric, thanks so much for joining us once again. And again, we will join you hopefully again soon for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, where you'll tell us more really cool information about the satellites over our heads in Alaska. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
For tomorrow, out along the coast, not too bad here, east to southeast at about 15 knots. Throughout the day, though, southeasterlies on the increase on the south coast up to 25 knots. So small craft advisories there with 9-foot seas. Also, Clarence Strait picking up to 25 knots, seas building to 5 feet. Pretty light there for Stevens Passage, variable to south at 10. Northern Canal southerlies at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. Sunday outlook, now we've got small crafts here all along the coast, or at least all the south coast out of the southeast, turning east 25, falling back to 15 knots out of the northeast. And then Lynn Canal, no change, afternoon south 20 knots, swinging back around to the north there for Stevens Passage. So a light variable wind weekend coming up for the central inside waters. Stevens Passage southeast at 20. And then Prince William Sound tomorrow, as well as the North Gulf Coast, light variable winds. Seas 2 to 5 feet, and light south winds in the afternoon for Cook Inlet, 10 to 15 knots. Southeast 15 here for Kachemak Bay. Southeastward across the Barren Islands, turning south at 15 along the east side of Kodiak Island. Really light winds for Shelikof Strait. Outlook for Sunday, light variable winds all at Cook Inlet. Seas pretty slight, 15 for Kachemak Bay and the Barrens out of the east. Same thing on the east side of Kodiak Island. And light variable winds for the North Gulf Coast, actually even Prince William Sound, with seas again running 2 to 4 to 5 feet. Bristol Bay, light variable winds there tomorrow with southeast 15, Sitkinak toward Castle Cape, picking up though 30 knots out of the southeast Pacific side of the peninsula. And for Sunday, again, tighter gradient, that front swinging northward there brings minimum gales east 35 knots, Sitkinak all the way to Cape Sarachev. And even Bristol Bay east of 35 knots in the forecast coming in the afternoon. Otherwise, small craft advisories here on the north side of the peninsula. And the eastern Aleutians, Unalaska Island, east-southeast 25 to 30 knots, turn south 20 here. Nikolsky westward, back around to the north and northwest, 25 to 38 Akanatka, diminishing as you head west. And then for Sunday, light variable winds here, western Aleutians under a high pressure ridge axis, turning southeast coming up to 25, mostly for Shemya in the late afternoon. Northwesterlies, north-northwesterlies, 20 to 25 or 20 to 30 knots there eastward to the Fox Islands. And for the southwest coast, light winds tomorrow, east-southeast there at 15, northeast 20 St. Lawrence Island, into the northern Bering Sea, swinging around to the southeast, but only 15 for the Pribilofs, seas down to 3 feet. And then for Sunday, northeast 15, St. Lawrence Island, northern Bering Sea, pick up to about 20 knots for the St. Paul, St. George area, along with 6-foot seas. And small craft advisories, south of Nunivak Island, east 25 blowing out of Kuskokwim Bay, 15-knot winds north-northeast to the north. Arctic coast, east side, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, east 15, central coast 20. Small craft advisories here, east 25, and then falling back to 10 to 15 out of the north on down to the Bering Strait. Not much change here, 15-knot winds, Wales up to about Cape Beaufort, turning northeast. Small craft advisories for another day there for the western Arctic coast, and then easterlies 15 to 20 for the remainder of the coastline. Looking at tonight's forecast again, showers, clouds to the Panhandle, and then later tonight this system spreading more rain into the southern areas up from Dixon Entrance, Prince of Wales Island eastward. Less of that to the north, scattered showers north Gulf Coast, isolated thunderstorms this evening, mountainous terrain south and east of the Alaska Range. Pretty nice west and north of the mountains there, and this front bringing some gusty winds and rain into the eastern Aleutians, sliding into the Alaska Peninsula tomorrow. Northerlies on the increase there, again 25 to 35 or 25 to 30 here for the central Aleutians, and small craft advisories, rain for the Alaska Peninsula on Saturday. Wet and showery for the Panhandle and kind of unsettled here for south central Alaska, but sunshine in the interior. And the outlook for Sunday, this system, again, gale force winds coming into the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, rain periods of westward to the Fox Islands, and now just some scattered showers tending to increase along with the winds here for the southeast coast in the afternoon. Probably be rain down there. Otherwise, have a perfect weekend.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.